Okay.
And I'm at City Hall right now. All right, Kathy, I think we're almost ready. I have one more step. Okay, and it's done. We're ready.
All right. Thank you, Gretchen. Welcome everybody to the December 21st meeting of the Awareness Campaign Task Force of the Salem Human Rights Commission. I have to get my task force names right. My name is Kathy Ostrom-Ponch, and I'm the chair of the task force and a member of the commission. And there's David. Let's give him a minute to join audio. Hi, David, can you hear me? Oh, good. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, good. We were just getting started, so
Okay.
I saw you pop up, so I just paused before. So we'll go ahead and do introductions. I will pass it to Susan. Do you want to go ahead and go next?
I'm Susan McNutt. I live in South Salem. My pronouns are she, her, and I will pass it to Joaquin.
Thank you, Susan. My name is Joaquin, a member of this subcommittee.
Officially now, yes.
Officially now, yeah. And I live in West Salem, Ward 8. David?
My name is David Reinholdt. I'm a resident of Polk County. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm on this committee. And I will pass it to Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gretchen Bennett, staff to the commission, and use she, her pronouns.
Gretchen, do we have any public comment tonight?
We do not.
No, okay. So next on the agenda is approval of minutes, and I believe we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. The July meeting, which was actually August 3rd, the August 24th meeting, and the September 28th meeting. All of those minutes need to be approved. So if anyone wants to move to have those approved.
I so move.
Seconded.
All right. Any objection? Okay, so I can just say that they're approved, right? We don't have to. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad that we got those approved. They've been sitting out there for a couple of meetings. So I'm kind of sorry. I'm trying to going back and forth between screens here. So leadership interest in 2023 is the next agenda item. I don't know if any of I'm going to step down as chair after this meeting. It's the end of the year. I did not mean to wait until the end of the year to spring it on you, but we haven't had a meeting since September, and so it's kind of been hanging out there. I do want to still participate on the task force. I have some other responsibilities at home that I want to kind of back off a little bit on the things I'm doing outside. So I don't know if any of you are interested or something to think about. Something else that I want to kind of keep in mind as we go through the agenda tonight is we're going to have new leadership on the commission as a whole starting maybe in January. I don't know. We didn't have a formal vote in December at our last meeting because we didn't have quorum. So at some point in the new year, we'll have new chair and vice chair of the commission. And one of the things that I've been thinking, we have a huge list of projects that we want to work on, and we'll talk about those tonight. But if there are some of those that maybe the full commission should be working on instead of a task force, or if that's something we want to let the commission discuss as a whole, is what to do with some of those projects and maybe prioritize them. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Not to put anybody on the spot, and you don't have to decide right now, but if anybody has an interest or any thoughts about the task force starting in January, I'd welcome your input. And we kind of see where it goes to.
Kathy, I can add one detail is that the chair of the Human Rights Commission appoints the chair of subcommittees. So a person could express interest and, the committee could talk about it, and then we would relay that to the chair. Currently still Angelo,
yeah. Potentially
changing in January. Yeah, if that helps people know the process.
Thank you, Gretchen. Okay. Well, it's something just to keep in mind, and we'll see. The next commission.
Well, I'll give you an answer, Kathy. I'm preliminarily interested in stepping up and chairing the subcommittee, but
I was going to nominate you. I'm glad.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for the vote of confidence.
And I would be happy if you were to do that as well. But yeah, so I guess we bring it to the chair of the full commission. And now Gretchen, would you, or how did, so does that become a item for the January meeting, or is that something that happens behind the scenes as far as if Joaquin considers it and decides what he wants to do, then would that just go to the chair?
It would. We've done that
Okay.
informally with just a
Okay.
written email to document the decision. So Joaquin, if you did decide, yes, I'm interested, and if there's any input to the contrary or anything, we would just notify the chair, and then they could by email appoint you, and then you would be the chair.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm interested. So I mean, if no one else is, then let that be the decision. But I'm also sensitive to maybe people joining the subcommittee in the coming new year, and maybe folks are interested in that. But yeah, I mean, in the absence of that, I'm consider this a formal interest. So
Just say yes.
yes, I'll do it.
I appreciate it. Now, as far as others joining, I mean, unless there's some potential new commission members, I think over the year, we've tried to extend an invitation a couple of different times to the others, and I don't know if it's the meeting time or what, but yeah, I mean, I hope that more people will join the task forces, but
Okay, so it's a yes for me, Gretchen.
Great. Okay, then I'll be in touch. And in the new year, you can always explore, is the meeting time or format, or is there anything we can do to help increase access or interest from folks?
Sure.
Can I ask a question? Who's the potential chair for the Human Rights Commission?
Hamadi Jackson has expressed interest in chair, and Kelsey Murray has expressed interest in vice chair, and no additional nominations have emerged yet, but they could still be welcome because we'll do elections next time we have quorum. We were one shy
Okay,
in December.
I was just asking because I assumed that either Kathy or Joaquin would be the chair or vice chair.
of the commission.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, honestly.
No, I'm trying to step back a little bit, but yeah.
Maybe next year, David. I've only been here for like 6 months, so.
They haven't been my chair much longer than you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, good. So thank you, Joaquin. I appreciate that. So moving on to the next item, the discrimination survey. We did have Professor Bradshaw come to our November meeting, but because we didn't have quorum, we didn't have that full discussion because I thought it was important for all of us or more of us to be there. So she did put the January 25th meeting on her calendar. And so hopefully we can be there for that. But I wanted to just touch base and talk about what some of those questions are that we had for her. And if we want to reschedule her for a different time, I mean, that's fine too. At one of our, I think it might've been our September meeting, but we had a number of questions, how to refine the survey in future years. How do we change the questions so that they're more actionable? What can we do with the results? Some things that I had written down the notes. What is empirically and statistically revealing? What are actionable questions? How do we balance the consistency year to year with possible needed changes? Are these the right questions? Is that workable that we target the same audience? Those types of things. And so I don't know if we just want to kind of go through those questions that were in our minutes from before, or if we have more questions that we want. I kind of wanted to plan that conversation with her before she joined us next time.
Mhm.
So thoughts or ideas for maybe how to structure that? Go ahead, Susan.
I'd like to see us just go through the questions, go through the comments that we had before.
Yeah, one of the things that I have been kind of wondering, the results of this survey weren't published until January, and she said that they're asking the students, the next term of students will come on April, maybe the end of March, and so that only leaves a short window for us to have that conversation with her and be ready if we wanted to launch into the next survey right away next spring. And just kind of in the back of my mind, I'm wondering if we'll be ready, but that could be a conversation we have with her too about the timing.
Mhm.
Because there was also some more planning that we talked about doing this time. Things that we hadn't anticipated before, like the need to go to city council and make the presentation there before publishing the results, things like that that kind of extended the time that it took this year around. So something to maybe think about for before launching the next one.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
I I know that, I'm just gonna go with the assumption that Joaquin's gonna be the chair. That's my assumption. I'm just gonna go off right now. And I know over the time, it seemed, Joaquin, that you had some questions about the survey. So I was just kind of curious how you would like to handle it.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm also kind of attending to maybe a more abbreviated schedule in the absence of having met with Professor in November. But I think the number one thing is to make the survey more inform us around actions that we can take, a little bit more prescriptive. That is, to me, that's the fundamental thing that needs to be improved upon. And I think the examples I brought up in the past that I would be interested in bringing up again, okay, 60% of women respondents, describe having experienced discrimination in the recent past. Okay, where, in what way, so if we don't know those things, those specifics, we really can't recommend actions or start having prescriptions to city council or policy recommendations. And so, if our mission is to obviously engage with the city community and have understanding of human rights issues, our mission is also simultaneously to recommend policy changes and advise city council. And so that's the part that is missing for me, and it is fundamental to this project in my view. And so that would be the outstanding thing that I think I would want us spending a lot of time on thinking about and communicating to the professor and the students. If
Now,
that
are there
answers your question.
things?
Yeah.
Are there things? Yeah, thank you. Are there things? I'm wondering if there are things that we want to give her a heads up about beforehand, or Gretchen, maybe you've already done that, so that she can prepare.
Yeah, we've certainly talked about that one. And I think the ones that you listed, you did a nice job with her last month.
Okay.
At the moment, I can't think of anything else, except I might try to play with a timeline draft. And that might be helpful for her to have in advance as a draft that we could bring into the meeting, perhaps.
Yeah, we could also maybe spend time trying to thinking of those clarifying specific questions that we'd like to see her adopt in the survey. That we might be useful time now. Additionally, as a point of information, is the survey in Spanish as well? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. And have we seen the Spanish version survey of that?
They've shared it before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
I'm always underwhelmed by the Spanish of certain surveys and government documents. So I would love to see that as well at some point, Gretchen, if you have it.
copy. Yep.
Did the city translate that, or was that something that Western Oregon University did?
I think Western did it.
And it seems to me that there were very, very, very low response rate with the Spanish language.
Correct.
surveys.
And that was another line of inquiry. There's specific outreach to people experiencing homelessness. Would other specific types of outreach benefit this process? We do try to share with a number of identity groups, but like a more face-to-face outreach, as we do with people experiencing homelessness, might lead to more, we could do the same really for other identities and populations.
Who do you liaise with for the Latino community when you're doing outreach? Or I guess, who do we liaise with?
Yeah, that's a fair and good question. We
Thank you.
had a list that I haven't dusted off for a little bit of organizations that are there, like that would receive our emails, that we could do outreach. Like I remember we would send this to, please share with your networks. That might include, for example, Mano a Mano Family Center. There's a moms group that happens in Spanish that we try to connect with. The city has a Spanish Facebook page specifically. Ciudad, I think. We've shared with Enlace before, which is a community organization here. David, we've occasionally connected. It's been a long time at the Latino Business Alliance. I know you've made that available.
Right. You could do Salem Kaiser Equality Or
Coalition for Equality,
Coalition for
yeah.
Equality, yeah.
Yeah, but I can send you, Joaquin, I'll look for the list as well. We have a groups.
So we have a strong network of sister organizations in Salem and Woodburn, but Salem. Unfortunately, Causa, which was kind of the engine of social change in the Latino community, no longer exists as of this year after 30 years, which is sad for me on a personal level because I worked there as a campaign organizer for 2 years, a couple years ago. But there are especially a couple of youth groups that are specifically run and for youth as well as for the school district, as David mentions, which might be worth reaching out to, because then the kids get it or the youth, young people get it, and then they bring it to their parents, and then they bring it to their neighbors, and they bring it to, and that's kind of a snowballing effect, which might be of interest to us here. But things to also think about, because ultimately, the Latino community is the largest ethnic minority in Salem, and if we're not hearing their voices around issues of discrimination, that's you see where I'm going with that.
Well, I think it's been, I mean, we've made, the bringing the survey to the unsheltered community has been a concerted effort. And I think the people who follow, there are certain groups who have taken it, but they primarily get it through like the city's Facebook page. But there are also, there are lots of groups out there that we don't have that. We haven't made that personal connection, hey, please, we want your input. And so I think that's something that's missing too in the distribution.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lists that it goes out to, but there's just another email unless there's that extra effort, I think, to reach out. So, yeah. Well, Joaquin, did you have some questions in mind that you wanted to, as far as
around the specifics and
yeah.
actionables? So forgive me as I'm trying to recall this. It's been a while since I've actually read the report, but issues, obviously primarily centered around sex-based houselessness status and disability, if I remember correctly, were those kind of the orbiting problems, especially around houselessness. And increasingly, a lot of folks experiencing houselessness also report, I think it was 66% report having a disability, kind of attending to the issues around that, I think are relevant. Is that a cat I see, or an animal?
I see a cat and a dog.
A dog. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Furry friends.
Ranger being there. Yes. Well, all of his other grown-ups are gone, and so he's stuck with me.
He seems to like you. Okay.
He does.
Yeah.
He likes any warm body, let me tell you.
I have a tiny schnoodle, which is a miniature schnauzer, or no, a schnauzer miniature poodle mix.
Well, we've got this one, and then we've got the Saint Bernard. So I'd rather have this one sitting next to me. Thank you.
So maybe focusing. Oh, there she is now, barking. Maybe focusing more specifically on those issues of represented concern in the survey. I don't want to be narrowed, but I also want to be aware that adding things onto a survey that is already maybe not the most accessible to people is a problem, or not a problem, but it is, or at least certainly something to be considered. And so maybe focusing on those specific issues, especially around things that lend themselves more to ambiguity, like sex-based discrimination. What does that look like? Is that in the house? Is that in the context of employment? What does that look like? So I think we have maybe other frameworks and other data around how other forms of discrimination play out on a day-to-day basis, and certainly even from the input that we get from the lieutenant and from folks in the community, we anecdotally have maybe an understanding of those things. But I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but it's kind of an interest in narrowing and being more focused and deliberate on some of those areas. You seem unsatisfied, Kathy.
No, I'm just thinking to the conversation we had with Marianne earlier this year when we're planning for this year's survey. There's that balance between not asking too many questions you know, I mean, as we added some questions, they took some away because they wanted to, and so just finding that balance. But I mean, I think we have to hear. I'll be interested to see what her perspective is, because
Yeah.
I think she was very interested in our feedback, but at the same time, how do you make that work?
Yeah, and there's always trade-offs, always scales to be balanced. But I again, I return to a simple point really, which is that if the information that we glean from the survey is not actionable, it really is of no use to us. And
Mhm.
so, and that's really what I'm interested in, especially because we're asking these folks who are learners and who are, getting their education to really, be in service to their city and to their community. And I don't want to waste their time either. And I know maybe it makes it harder for them to change things, but I think it ultimately serves everybody, and most of all, Salemites. So
Well, I agree with Joaquin. I think that we don't want questions that are so broad that they really don't tell us anything.
Yeah.
We know that more and more women, for instance, are among those who are unhoused. And so I would be really interested in knowing the extent of that and that sort of thing. So that we can do something.
And I agree with Joaquin too. I mean, if we start going out there and the survey gets well known and people think that the city of Salem is getting information that they could take action on, and the city's really not getting the information to take action on, then it looks like the city doesn't really care about this survey, so it's kind of wasting people's time.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a real problem.
that's actually a really excellent point, David.
Mhm.
People need to feel like what the information they're sharing, vulnerable information, is something that will be of service to themselves and other people in the community who are vulnerable. That's absolutely true. Yeah, especially because we don't have to get into this, but like, I remember even reading some of the anecdotes. Some of them were very graphic and horrible, but like that was the stuff that somehow was really colored the conversation for me more than data, in the way that it was gathered and presented in the survey at the time. And so, but because it had specifics, I mean, there was this gentleman who was homeless that related a story about a personal friend of his that was a woman, to Susan's point, who had been sexually violated on the streets by kind of a passerby. And I was like, whoa, that is something that we can address. But those sort of stories, and I don't want to get graphic stories from people per se, but understanding who, what, when, where is essential to anything moving forward. And that whole story and stories like that one are not in the way it's presented now. And I'm just belaboring the point, but those stories are the ones that are missing, and those are the stories we need to hear the most, I think. So
We need the data, but it's those stories that make the data real.
yeah, and we need data that's in service of those stories, and I don't know that it is at this point.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to what David was saying, there's really no point in gathering data if we're not going to do something with it. And people need to feel like we're doing something with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that the third year, or third year, why am
I think it might be the fourth year.
Yeah.
I feel like I make the same mistake every time, which reminds me of physics in college. The fourth year is maybe a good time to start making those changes. I think, these surveys are always imperfect, especially when they're as big and as ambitious as this one. And I think we've actually done a great job in the last few years of doing the survey. And it has limitations, and those limitations need to be addressed. And this is a good time to do that.
And we'll just keep working on it and getting better each year.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the data that we have gotten the past two surveys has been very, very comparable. And so I think this is the time to make changes, because if we get a third year of comparable data, okay, I don't think we're showing that we're doing anything with it, or that we're really looking at it if we're not changing it for the better. Yeah. So is January 25th, is that an okay date? I mean, are you all going to be available so that
What day of the
we
week
can
is
have
that,
this
Kathy?
conversation? I'm sorry?
What day of the week is that? I'm
Should be a
looking at my
Wednesday,
calendar.
the 25th.
Okay.
I've got it on my calendar.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Anything else on that?
I could do the 25th. Well, I just had to check my calendar real fast.
Oh, okay. Good. So the next thing on the agenda is the monthly column. And it's been a while since we've talked about this. You know, we were at a point, there was a draft kind of workflow. I don't think it was attached to this month's meeting materials, so it might be something that we want to bring back. And I guess I just want to check in and see, is that something that we still want to pursue as a task force? Because I think if we're gonna, well, this is my thoughts. If we're gonna work on the survey, that's gonna take up some, the chunk of our time early in the year. Is this something that we want to maybe take back to the full commission and see what they want to do? Or, I don't know, it's gonna take some work, the getting the articles lined up and having people write those articles. So just a check in on where we are with that, or where your thoughts are about what we should do with that.
I'd like to see it go back to the full task or the full commission, because I think that they would have a wider perspective because there are more of this. So I think that would be the appropriate thing to do.
David or Joaquin, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a wide engagement is good. My only concern with taking it to the full commission is that it won't happen. Meaning that they won't get, that's just the way of life. And that I'm concerned that sorry, my fire alarm's going off downstairs, but I know I'm not going to die. My sister's cooking, and that's what happens usually. What was I saying? Oh, and keeping it in a small group is best. Yeah, so
I don't disagree with that. I just worry about it not getting done with this group either, because we have other things that we're working on. But trying to find the time to get them all.
And I ultimately I think that the column is going to be something that people are going to do. Someone, it's going to be somebody is going to have to do between meetings.
Gretchen, you were talking about maybe doing a calendar of some of the events so we could kind of work around some of those things that were coming up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our I think you're talking about the communication plan. We have different things for each month of the year. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy to send that out, and that might generate people identifying or connecting with a particular topic. Someone might say, oh, I really love this one, and I'd like to sign up to write a draft of that one. I'll send it out.
Please. Thank you.
And something else, it's been probably, a year or more since we looked at that too. So that might be worth sending out again to see if people have other thoughts about what should be included on that. Because right now, there's some things that I think a prior commissioner had come up with, and a couple of us had looked at that list, but there might be things we're missing on there too.
Is this different from the one that remind me what her name is, Gretchen, the newest member of the commission?
Hope.
Is this different from what she's doing, or is
it is?
Okay.
Yeah. Hope is doing something that tries to look for events that might be of interest for the commissioners to engage in. And then this is a list organized by calendar month and some of the different recognitions or special days.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And so you might look at it and go, oh, January is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and I'd really like to write something about that. So I'll sign up to write a monthly column related to that, just for example.
Yeah. We might benefit from that kind of forecasting early in the year. Maybe people can sign up for something that's happening 6 months from then, or something, Pride Month or something. And clustering the writing earlier on might be best, and maybe someone can prep a January one now, or by early January. So have you reached out at all to any outlets, Gretchen, about even their willingness or interest in running an article?
External to the Human Rights Commission, I haven't.
Okay.
I think it's been conceptualized as being from the Human Rights Commission.
Oh, I see. So,
Yeah.
so I remember we had talked maybe about reaching out to the Statesman or something like that.
Oh,
but
you
that's
mean
not-
for the publishing end?
Yes, forgive me. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
There is potentially
That was a
interest.
rough
I think
transition.
we need to see a couple of, no, it's good. I think we need to see a couple of examples to help make it real. I think it's like, oh, that's potentially interesting. Let's see. And
Yeah.
so to be able to have something to give back that like, well, here's an offering and here's what we imagine in the queue, I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gretchen, point of inquiry. How pretentious, point of inquiry. Are we allowed to have meetings for the subcommittee outside of the monthly meeting?
Yes.
Do
It
they
comes
have,
down to capacity.
do they have to be broadcast?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances. So let's think for a second. If you are meeting with a quorum or more to deliberate on the commission's business, then it has to be accessible to the public.
Mhm.
So if you meet via Zoom, yes, it would need to be broadcast. If you meet in person, it wouldn't, as long as we meet the posting requirements for advertising the opportunity for people to come in person.
I'm asking because in terms of actually writing these things, you know, a form of like office hours, if people want to have input or something, you know, to have like an open channel for an hour and we can talk about an article outside of the context of these meetings. And maybe no one shows up, maybe no one's interested, but maybe that might be an opportunity for some contact and engagement from folks. I don't know. I'm just thinking of, but I honestly, for some reason, would be less interested in that if it were broadcast. but
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I think you could get feedback on writing. Like you could reach out to an individual commissioner and receive
Yeah.
some feedback on writing. It'll just be important not to deliberate on potential policy recommendations, you know, just thinking about that opportunity for the public to access the work of the commission. But connecting with one other member that's not a quorum and saying, this is what I'm thinking about for this column, and do you have any input for me? I think that could be just fine.
Okay.
But do we want to bring it back to or maybe just give the full commission an update in January, but keep it on our to-do list? Or, because I mean, I think I heard Susan say one thing and maybe Joaquin say something a little bit different. So as far as where it lands on our future plan.
I'd like to see a broad input, but I think that I agree that I just want to get it done. I want to make
Yeah.
sure that it doesn't just fall through the cracks and get tabled.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think starting in the new year, it warrants a general commission conversation about what our appetite is around this and what it looks like practically. And I think at the end of the day, it'll come down to a few number of people who are actually going to write the columns, and that might look like people who are part of the subcommittee. But
Yeah, it needs to be doable.
Exactly. So Gretchen, do you want to send back out that proposed, I don't remember what it was called. It was a workflow or plan or something. Bring that back up and maybe send that out for our January meeting so people can refresh themselves on what we talked about.
Will do. I'll put that to the January Human Rights Commission agenda. Will do.
Okay. So next on the agenda, unsheltered communities and Chapter 97 revisions. Chapter 97 revisions are now in effect. And we talked about, was that last week? We had our commission meeting that there hasn't been any complaints yet received either by Gretchen or by the police department specific to unsheltered discrimination. But it's still early. And so, not knowing how that's going to play out. Now, Gretchen, have you had more meetings with different groups in the community to kind of get the word out there?
No additional meetings. We have an invitation to come to a meeting at a local housing authority to talk to their staff coming up in February. I've had some individual conversations with people, but no additional like larger presentations.
So Lieutenant Aguilar presented not at the December meeting, but at the November meeting, and I'm not sure if any of the other task force members were there, but she gave an overview of kind of bias crimes and bias incidents, which I thought was interesting because I didn't fully understand how that works. And I don't remember all of what she said. And there was a slideshow that went with it, but I'm trying to remember what she said. Something that was interesting to me. If one of them is a violation that in Marion County, it is not lodgeable. So if somebody commits the violation, they will not go to the jail in Marion County. But if it were in Polk County, they would, because the different counties have different policies about who does and doesn't get taken to jail, which I thought was interesting. And so I had just made a note to mention it to this group, but it was, so there's two different pieces of the changes. There's the discrimination piece, but there's also the, it used to be called intimidation, but it's a violation. You can't tamper with somebody's property or, cause harm or things like that solely based on one of the protected classes. So there's two different changes that we made. I think a lot of people are focusing on the discrimination part, but I just didn't want to lose sight of the other part too. But if somebody does commit one of those violations, it's not necessarily a hefty consequence, it sounds like.
Is that
I
for the
don't remember the
intimidation
details.
specifically, Kathy?
What's that?
For the intimidation, you mean, or what?
Yeah.
So what you were saying is intimidation in Polk County is not lodgeable, or what do you mean by that?
Marion County. Well, I'm trying to remember Gretchen, do you remember that I took the notes I took are not exactly revealing to me right now, but it was for one of the violations, it was something that was not lodgeable. I mean, there still might be charges,
Right.
For a bias crime, but maybe for a bias incident, there weren't charges. I don't know. Do you happen to have her PowerPoint presentation that maybe we could look at?
That's a great question. I don't know. You mean like to share on the screen right
Not
now?
necessarily, just to send out to this group
Yeah.
so we can better understand how those
I'll obtain it.
changes.
I'll look for it and send it out. Generally speaking, incidents are not criminal in nature. So certainly wouldn't be lodgeable. Crimes, it's going to depend on the level of crime. A violent assault coupled with a certain type of violent assault coupled with intimidation could very well be lodgeable depending on the level of assault it is. An intimidation charge sans violence, sans, would not likely be lodgeable, and that's related to capacity and resources and some thoughts about what really helps with accountability and restoration, whether lodgeable things, there's that whole discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll look for her PowerPoint and send it out.
Because I found that helpful. I mean, it's been
Good.
long enough that I don't remember the details, obviously, but I found it helpful to hear how that works. If someone actually does violate that section of the code, what happens?
Right. Yeah.
I think I'm smelling a column.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, and not to get ahead of ourselves a little bit, but as we learn more and as the policy saturates communities and passes through courts, kind of harkening back to those who were in attendance last week with Marley. I don't know if I know her last name.
The Baker?
Baker. Wow, very good, Kathy. Very good. I arrived late in fashionable style, so I think I missed the opening comments. But Marley, from the Fair Housing Council of Oregon, she was asking really, really critical questions that I think would be incumbent on us to also ask and answer, either in the column formally and very publicly, or just kind of generally in messaging as a awareness task force around kind of the limits and implications and details and specifics of the change in the SRC, because does, for example, housing discrimination, like rent and all that stuff count as discrimination or violations of your rights as a protected class when it comes to houselessness unanswered. Intimidation, violation of property while is the kind of what you have on the streets with your property. I mean, these are all questions that I think are interesting and need and haven't been answered and in full at all. And as they do, I think will lend itself to content that we can take up and engage with too. But that's in the coming months.
Yeah.
But I have a question about this. Who's taking the lead on building the awareness in the community of this change? Does it fall to us? Is it the city of Salem as a whole?
I think it's a combination. The city did a series of steps through their communication channels, a news release, some posting of information in the Friday email that goes out to quite a few people, discussion at the city council meeting. They used their channels to share about it. In addition, we scheduled a series of we made some phone calls, and we also scheduled a series of presentations to be able to try to share the information in the community. But I would submit that's probably an ongoing project. There's lots of people, lots of groups that are potentially interested. So as our capacity allows, I think we could just continue along that path.
Has kind of in the spirit of that question, have any outlets in Salem covered this change? Because this is a pretty significant change. I mean, I think Salem amounts to being the only city who's made this change, right, in the state of Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's what Marley was sharing as well. Forgive me.
I'm trying to remember if I saw it anywhere besides just the city's email. And I don't recall.
I'm also not remembering at the moment if like the Salem Reporter or the Statesman Journal picked up the story. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and see if they did. I don't know the answer to that question.
Sorry, my sister was bringing me the food.
Lovely.
She's very generous. But this is not just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just psyched, as it were. But this is not even a Statesman Journal thing. I mean, this is like an Oregonian article. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, why are we not, both as members of the commission, but also just private citizens, like sounding the bells of like, this change has happened and this is remarkable and this is great. And we don't know, there's a lot of details we don't know, but we should know. We, Oregonians should know about this change that's happening in the Capitol.
Yeah.
I'll ask our comms team if they ended up in any discussions. We have people who communicate and have updates with media partners. Let me find out if they had any subsequent conversations, or maybe it hit at a bad time. You know how sometimes the news cycle can really affect things. So it's a good question.
Yeah. Well, it came around the
honestly thought
midterms, and that's just a media blackout.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I remember when this first started talking about this, we talked about being ready for the media, because I think we're like the second or third city in the nation to ever have to do this. Right. And we were going to do a big media thing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did a news release, and I think I was like, okay, there could easily be follow-up conversations to have. There could be interviews, I was anticipating, but I don't recall any as I think back on it.
I can tell you this, I've been out of the loop of this for a little bit just because I've been working so much. But till right now, this is the first time I found out that it actually is official.
Really?
And I'm in the community a lot.
Yeah,
Well,
I think a lot of
and you're
people
on the commission. I mean,
are-
that's these are yeah. So I would be even comfortable, Kathy, while you still have the gavel, as it were, even going, for you or somebody to write something for the Oregonian, even just something. I mean,
Yeah.
And news releases are great, and I love those, but I don't know who's reading news releases from the city of Salem,
Yeah.
and not in terms of, like who cares about those things, but like the type of people who are reading them, maybe not the people who need to know, and everyone needs to know. And so, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we send news releases to the media outlets. we.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but and then they could either maybe publish information from that, or that could generate a story idea for them, for example. But yeah, I'll
Okay.
see what I can figure out about that release.
Okay. Well, even, I watched both city council meetings where they talked about it. And the first reading, there was a little bit of discussion, all in favor. And then the second reading, it was just like a formality, like, yep, okay, we passed it. And then that was the end of it. And so, yeah, it was very, very quick. They were all in favor of it, but I didn't hear a lot of it afterwards. So we'll have to, I'm curious to see if you do find out anything, Gretchen, because I really don't remember hearing about it outside of that. Okay, good ideas. I don't know if I'm going to be able to write an article for the Oregonian before the end of the year, but I do want to know what else has come out.
700 words, Kathy. I think that's how much an op-ed is. 700 words. You can do it.
Which actually brings us to our next piece. So we have we had been trying to have some sort of a communication go out under the Human Rights Commission, at least monthly. And that's where that annual communications plan came in. There was, we tried to maybe have it around some sort of a theme. I don't remember the last one that we did. It was probably Transgender Day Remembrance, maybe.
I think it was. I was supposed to send out our human rights proclamation in December, and I regret that I haven't done that yet. I still could. We also had the idea of the year, like a year in review.
Yeah, so we have, Gretchen and I had maybe exchanged emails about doing a year in review. And there were 3 things in particular that we thought to include. There might be more. One is the changes to Chapter 97. The other is discrimination survey, and then Transgender Day of Remembrance are kind of the 3, I guess, big things that I can think of that the commission as a whole has accomplished over this past year, 2022. And so doing it wouldn't be too detailed, but just doing a real quick piece of, hey, here were our accomplishments, and we're looking forward to doing more in 2023. If that sounds like an okay thing, I can try and put something together. I meant to do it before now, but like an outline and send it to you, Gretchen, to get it in before the end of the year. Would that be possible? Or I guess it could even go into January. It doesn't have to be.
It's certainly possible. It doesn't take long at all to send it out. And like you, Kathy, I meant to sit down and draft that as well to help out, and haven't been able to get to it.
Would the rest of you, if I put together a quick thing about that, would the rest of you like to review that and maybe have some input? I welcome anybody's feedback.
I'd be happy to provide feedback.
Okay. So maybe if I could send it to you, Gretchen, you can send it out for.
Sure.
And then for January, if we're going to keep with the same pattern, the things that are on the communication plan is Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the annual point in time count. If there's anything that anybody.
The annual what? I'm sorry, Kathy.
The point in time count. So that's something that's actually, I think it's a nationwide thing, but they pick a day in January where people go out and literally count the unhoused individuals in the community.
Oh, I see.
To kind of get the numbers for how many people are living without shelter. And that's, I think, January 20. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I think it's the 3rd maybe week of January. So that might be an opportunity to talk about issues surrounding unhoused people too. So just if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, and I think this could roll up, the annual communication plan could roll up into the monthly column. They could become kind of one and the same too. So
Yes.
yeah. Gretchen, will there be something about Martin Luther King Jr. Day anyways coming out from the city?
There was last year, so likely again. And I know some folks at the city are connecting with the Salem Kaiser NAACP on an event as well. So there would likely be event information as well as some material again. Last year we did, and so I would anticipate yes. So that's another pathway, is just connecting in with maybe what we are generating here at the city.
Yeah.
And I could share that with you all for feedback. I can ask.
Okay, so, any other thoughts about that? We'll at least get something out about the year in review,
Yeah.
and then potentially something in January about Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So the next, I see that the time is coming to an end, and I know Gretchen wants to leave. So the next agenda item, which again is just kind of a placeholder, we had talked, and maybe this goes back to the full commission. We had talked about doing a position description for the Human Rights Commission so that potential applicants would know really what to expect. If we want to get maybe generate more interest in community members applying to be on the commission. I don't think there's a lot of information out there right now about what that really means. And so that was something that was, I think, a task maybe assigned to this group. But we've had other things that we've been working on, so we really haven't had a chance to get to it. So it's kind of just a placeholder there so we don't lose sight of it. And then I think the last thing is member remarks and announcements. Anybody have anything that we haven't already talked about tonight that you'd like to share?
I think we just need to turn Gretchen loose.
Enjoy your daughter's basketball game, Gretchen.
Yes.
Thank you.
I hope she wins.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all
Is
for
this at
being
high
here
school or
tonight.
college basketball? Sorry.
She's
Okay.
senior in high school.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Salem is hosting the Capital City Classic tournament right now. And so I think
Wow.
they're in finals this evening. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure the city will join me in wishing her the best.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, nice to see you all tonight. I'm glad you could
Yes.
be here, and thank you, Joaquin. And we'll see you in January.
Is this your last meeting, Kathy, as chair?
I'm stepping down as chair, but it is my intention to stay on the task force. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I will continue to participate, just not in the role as chair.
Well, fighting the clock. Thank you for your leadership. I think when I joined back in May, I was quick to identify you as someone who was really, really articulate and had a vision for what this commission can do. And I am grateful for the work that you've done during my limited time here. So thank
No,
you.
well,
And
I appreciate that.
look forward to working with you moving forward.
I wasn't quite ready to step down all the way yet because I think there are still some things that we could be doing, and I'd like
Yeah.
to see some of those through. So
I want to echo that too, Kathy. You've just been a delight to get to support and work with, and so grateful for your focus and your ability to continue to track multiple projects. I appreciate that. And you're willing to sit down and write and produce documents for the commission's review. I think that's helped us move some things forward. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
Oh,
Joaquin,
thank
I'm
you.
happy I'll be reaching out and after appointment, work to support you in your role.
well, everyone stay safe and hopefully the weather doesn't get too bad, but
Yeah, stay
Either way.
warm tomorrow.
stay safe and have good holidays, however you choose to celebrate them.
Y'all too.